Hello and welcome back to the NFL DFS slate breakdown for Thursday night football. We have the Texans at the Jets for a Week 9 clash to start off Week 9. I am your host, Tyler Weeman, at FlatTyler83 on Twitter and on your DFS sites. Now, let's get into it. But before we do, please come join us at LineStar. We do have a free trial, free 7-day trial. It gets you access to everything we do, all the props, all the DFS for both the website and the app. All you got to do is go through the app stores, either iOS or Android, search LineStar DFS, and it'll pop up. If you have never tried us out before, you get 7 free days. Now, let's dig into this whole slate we got here. So, we got Jets versus Texans. Again, we got to deal with the Jets on prime time. We got to deal with them again in a couple more weeks, but at least that is Sunday night football, not Thursday or Monday. So Aaron Rodgers, 13K, 59% owned. He does have the better matchup for passing today. So he is lower and has the better matchup. CJ Stroud is lacking a lot of wide receiver talent. So it remains to be seen how he is able to adjust to that. He still has some guys. There's good old Bobby Trees back there, and then Mechie, who was a early round draft pick, dealt with an illness and is back. And, you know, who knows what he can do if he really gets time. So time will tell there, but Aaron Rodgers does have the better matchup. And we were looking at FanDuel there. But let's click over to DraftKings, as I want to emphasize DraftKings a little more just because it's bigger contests over there. Pretty much same ownership here on DraftKings. Aaron Rodgers is also cheaper here too. I think Aaron Rodgers is the better play, but really either one can get it done, as we always see in these showdowns. You go to the matchup tool. What we got is, it shows Aaron Rodgers with a really good matchup, actually. 28th versus QB for Houston, whereas it's 13th for CJ Stroud. Getting over to the running back spot. We got two beasts of a running back. We got Breece Hall and Joe Mixon. Both are the guys. I do side with Joe Mixon in this spot. One, with all the injuries to the wide receiver core, I do think Joe Mixon will be used a little bit more in the passing game than he has before, but he's still been used very much. 6 targets last week, 3 the week before, 3 the week before that, 5, 3. He's regularly involved, and I do expect more of a 6 type outing than 3 due to just the injury issues. And then we know he already has that big time upside on the ground, and the Jets have been allowing 100 yards a game on the ground. So it makes a good reason to want to play Joe Mixon. You can absolutely use him as a captain. I would say that it's him or Tank Dell or Schultz are the likely captain options on Houston. Breece Hall, Houston's been very tough versus the running back. Breece can at least get it done through the passing game, so he always has a little bit of upside. I'm fine going with some Breece, but I do, in a 1v1, I do prefer Mixon over Breece. After that, Dare and Braylon Allen both playing, limited snaps. Braylon Allen got to 30% last week, but a couple weeks before that, he was more around 20%. So he's used sparingly, as is Dare. I would say Dare, with Dameon Pierce likely to be out this game, Dare is probably going to be in there, 20% or so. The real way he's going to do some damage is on the ground, through the air, not so much on the ground. I doubt he really gets any carries, maybe a target or two. And matchup-wise, it is Mixon with clear favorite matchup, with Jets being 27th versus the RB1. Very interesting spot there. On FanDuel pricing, Mixon's higher owned and cheaper. I would be all over that, lower owned, but more expensive. I would be all over that higher price for Mixon over Breece. Getting to the wide receiver room. This is where we have some interesting stuff to talk about. It does look like Allen Lazard is going to miss. So Mike Williams, once again, is the wide receiver 3. Devontae Adams, him and Wilson are pretty much playing the same amount of snaps, almost every single snap out there. Red zone wise, Adams over the last 2 weeks does have one more red zone target than Wilson. So that is one thing to note. Wilson is the one that keeps getting it done, though. He had 5 for 61, 5 for 113, whereas Adams 3 for 30 and 4 for 54. I do think it's an interesting spot, though. Both guys are very good. Both guys can get it done. But the better, and they do have the better matchups versus Houston than Tank Dell does. Tank Dell, he should get peppered with targets. So no Nico Collins, no Stephon Diggs now. What we saw last year when he got peppered with targets, that's when he went nuts. 10 targets versus Arizona, 8 for 149 and a touchdown. 14, 6 receptions for 56 and a touchdown. 11 targets, 6 for 114 and 2 touchdowns. He's good around the red zone, and when he gets targets, he produces. The yards aren't always there, but touchdowns, receptions should be. I'm definitely interested in some Tank Dell, but the coverage should go his way. Outside of Tank Dell, it's kind of a toss-up right now what Houston does. Robert Woods, Bobby Trees, and Mechie would be my likely ones to take over the WR2 spot. I think Xavier Hutchinson stays in the 3. I would not be surprised if Mechie and Woods just kind of split, that workload, and there's not a true number 2. Both guys have some upside. Mechie, obviously a younger guy. We don't really know what he's going to do. Bobby Trees, been in the league for years and years now, but we really haven't seen anything from him a couple of years. So the upside pick is Mechie, and he's getting some ownership, but Bobby Trees is there and very well could be the WR2 at low ownership. So I think you need to consider that. On the Jet side, Adams or Wilson, one of those are going to be the guy. It's really hard to figure out which one. I would just say kind of, it's a toss-up, and both are super intriguing options. Getting over to FanDuel, just make sure pricing. So the interesting thing here on FanDuel is Garrett Wilson's $3K more than Devontae Adams. And in that case, I would probably pay up just to get different. Adams will be the chalk. He's the wide receiver 1, technically. Wilson, likely more so the 2. And he's more expensive, so I would probably side with Wilson. He's the one doing the work lately. Just go with that and some lower ownership. Tank Dell is obviously in play at $12K. And then, minimum salary, you got a lot of guys that are interesting here with Mechie, Woods, Williams. Xavier Hutchinson being $10K is wild to me. I think that is too expensive. He didn't really get a boost in his snap count when Diggs came out. Maybe a slight boost. But with that, I wouldn't expect him to really play too much more than he did last year or last game. He's been around, 50, 60% snap share, and I bet that's where he stays. All right. Getting over to tight end. Dalton Schultz is $7K and 12% owned. He is an absolute slam for me if you're playing a tight end. I love this spot. We have for tight end, Schultz, the Jets, 21st through first tight end 1. Dalton Schultz is there. He's in a good matchup. He is going to get more targets. Outside of Tank Dell, you have Schultz and Mixon. Those are the next two trusted guys. And tight ends often are used as security blankets for QBs. So I think Dalton Schultz is in a great spot. I would expect 6 to 8 targets, and there's upside for, a touchdown there. So very interested in Dalton Schultz this week. On the other side, Conklin. It is a tougher matchup for him, but he's had some very good games, much better games than Schultz has. So I'm not surprised to see maybe a little more ownership his way. I just think there's more volatility in his spot, and with him higher owned, I would rather go to Schultz if I have to play a tight end. But Dalton Schultz is one of my favorite plays on the slate. On FanDuel, him and Tyler Conklin are pretty much the same price, and I would be slamming Schultz, but ownership is there with that as well. Now, getting into the defense and the kickers, it is always a toss-up, and I will, but let's get into it. All right, so Texans, they're without a lot of good offensive weapons. Definitely will help that Jets defense. Then, the Texans defense is missing some key spots. So it hurts their defense a little bit. I think this is going to be an interesting game. Both defenses are absolutely in play, but I do prefer the Jets defense in this spot at home. And Texans are missing some offensive weapons. And then you go to kicker. Fairbairn is clearly the one I would rather. And Zerline, yep. I knew he popped up on the injury report, but he is on injured reserve now, so we're not sure who the Jets are going to bring up for that kicker spot yet, but it will be a backup. Fairbairn is a solid kicker, and he's been doing well. I mean, almost double digits in every game this year, so definitely like him, and we'll be using him a little bit, but as always, it's a kicker, so likelihood of them being in the perfect lineup isn't great, but ownership is less on them. So definitely worth taking some shots there if you're playing a bunch of lineups. That'll do it for us today, guys. Quick rundown through all the positions and all the players. I hope you guys have a good one. Good luck, and we'll be back with more this week. Peace.